Hi everyone. Before we dive in, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future content. Let's get started. There are some strange, thrilling, and mysterious true crime stories. In this video, we will take you to a shocking case in Sydney, Australia. This is a story about greed, betrayal, and dark conspiracies hidden behind the glamorous appearance of a wealthy family. What will you do when the person you trust the most is the one hiding a knife behind your back? A seemingly perfect marriage suddenly becomes a nightmare when a dark secret is exposed behind the door of a luxurious villa. An illicit love affair and a murder plot are secretly taking place. Rafferty, a promising young doctor, spends most of his time at the hospital. His beautiful, intelligent wife is not who she appears to be, and Dorian, Rafferty's brother, always has everything: money, power, and even his brother's wife. A horrific accident at a city intersection has left everyone stunned. But was it just a random accident or the first step in a much darker plot? Secrets are gradually revealed, a murder plan is prepared, and the criminals have no idea that everything will soon be exposed. It must be said that this is a complex case with many fascinating interwoven details. Let's explore this dramatic case where betrayal and crime are intertwined to see clearly that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the closest person. The Mason family is one of the richest and most influential families in Sydney, Australia, with a huge fortune from business and relationships in the upper class. They are always the center of attention. Richard Mason is the head of the Mason family, a successful businessman with a huge fortune and extensive relationships in the upper class of Sydney. He started from scratch and built a strong business empire, making his family one of the most powerful and wealthy families in the city. A strict father, Richard always set high standards for his sons, Dorian and Rafferty. He expected them to not only inherit but also develop and expand the family business, continuing the reputation he had built. Richard was very proud of Dorian's success in business and Rafferty's passion for medicine. Dorian Mason, the eldest son in the family, is a successful businessman with a charming and elegant appearance. He is the head of the famous clothing company Mason Fashion, and together with his wife, Rafferty, has turned the family brand into a high-end fashion icon in Sydney. With his business talent and excellent management ability, Dorian is always proud of his family and considers himself the perfect successor. Dorian married Rafferty in 2013, and they have two beautiful children. However, behind the happy appearance, Dorian is never satisfied with his married life, always looking for new and exciting things. He constantly engages in extramarital relationships to fill the nameless void. Rafferty Mason is the second son of the Mason family. From a young age, Rafferty lived under the pressure of great expectations from his parents, always having to strive to live up to the family name and reputation. He chose the path of medicine and quickly became a promising young doctor, dedicated to his work and often spending long hours on duty at the hospital. Rafferty married Evadne, a beautiful and intelligent woman, in 2017 after a period of romantic dating. The marriage initially brought him a sense of happiness and fulfillment. However, his busy career made Rafferty often absent from home, gradually creating an invisible distance between him and his wife. Cracks in the marriage began to appear, making their relationship cold and distant. Unexpectedly, that gap was an opportunity for dark secrets to gradually form. Evadne, in her loneliness and lack of affection, falls into the arms of Rafferty's brother, Dorian. The affair between the two not only threatens Rafferty's marriage but also drags him into a series of tragic events that he never anticipated. After their marriage, both Dorian and Rafferty, along with their youngest sister, Era, moved to live with their parents, Richard and Clara Mason, in a large and luxurious mansion in Sydney, Australia. This mansion is a symbol of the wealth and power of the Mason family, an upper-class family with a reputation built up over many generations. The affair between Dorian and Evadne began about a year after Rafferty and Evadne got married. At that time, Rafferty's marriage was gradually falling into disrepair because his work was too busy, leaving him little time for his wife. The lack of affection from Rafferty made Evadne feel lonely and deprived of the attention she had expected in marriage. Dorian, Rafferty's charming and elegant brother, noticed the distance between his brother and Evadne. Originally a playboy and never satisfied with his married life, Dorian began to look for opportunities to approach Evadne. Sweet words, secret meetings, and pampering from Dorian made Evadne fall in love more deeply than just a passing pleasure. Their relationship became more profound despite the moral and family barriers. Dorian knew how to listen to Evadne's confidences and sorrows, making her feel understood and appreciated, something her husband, Rafferty, could no longer do. The affair between Dorian and Evadne was not just a secret rendezvous but also a commitment to a whirlwind of passion and temptation. At first, the meetings between the two only took place in the evenings when Rafferty was busy on night shifts at the hospital. With his generous nature and experience in love, Dorian easily found ways to approach and attract Evadne. For the first time, he invited her to dinner at a luxurious restaurant in the city center. Not only did he share humorous stories and demonstrate delicate care, but Dorian also gave Evadne expensive gifts, ranging from perfume to jewelry. This made her feel appreciated, something she no longer experienced with her husband. After dinner, Dorian invited Evadne to a nearby hotel room. The feeling of excitement and suspense made it difficult for Evadne to refuse. That night, they shared intimate moments filled with a forbidden yet seductive passion. Dorian constantly orchestrated surprise appointments at different hotels in the city. Each time they met, he prepared carefully, choosing luxurious rooms and creating romantic evenings with candles and wine. Evadne quickly became caught up in this relationship, feeling increasingly satisfied and content with Dorian's pampering. His sweet words and special care made her sink deeper into this wrong love. Dorian often took Evadne shopping at high-end fashion stores. Each time, he did not hesitate to spend thousands of dollars, allowing her to choose the expensive clothes, handbags, and shoes she had always wanted. She gradually became addicted to these lavish shopping trips with Dorian, which made her even more distant from Rafferty. Evadne began to change her dressing style, often appearing in designer clothes and sparkling jewelry that Rafferty had never seen before. Dorian was not only a lover but also the one who helped Evadne satisfy her luxurious dreams, which she previously thought were only in her imagination. Every time they were together, Dorian created romantic moments, from affectionate hugs to sweet words, making Evadne forget the responsibilities of being a wife. She began to come home later, avoid Rafferty, and gradually distance herself from her married life. Meanwhile, Rafferty increasingly noticed changes in his wife. He did not understand why Evadne was so distant and cold toward him. Their encounters became awkward and forced, making Rafferty feel lost in his own home. The distance between the couple grew larger, while the illicit relationship between Dorian and Evadne deepened and became difficult to stop. After nearly a year of secret relations, Evadne discovered that she was pregnant. She was extremely bewildered by the news because the child in her womb was clearly the result of her affair with Dorian. Despite her worries and fears, Evadne could not hide her joy at the thought of becoming a mother, a feeling she had always expected but had not experienced since her marriage to Rafferty. Upon learning that Evadne was pregnant, Dorian was not afraid. He was delighted because their relationship now had living proof. Time passed, and Evadne gave birth to a handsome baby boy who bore many similarities to Dorian, from his deep blue eyes to his slightly curly brown hair. Rafferty, being too busy with his work at the hospital, had no doubts about the baby's origin, thinking it was his son. He took care of and loved the child very much, which made Evadne feel guilty for what she had done and was doing. However, the affair could not remain a secret. Dorian and Evadne did not want to hide their relationship forever. They wanted to make their love public, not through divorce or gentle separation, but by cruel and vicious plans. They both began to think about eliminating those who stood in their way: Dorian's wife, Zyra, and Rafferty, Evadne's husband. Dorian and Evadne decided that the first step in their plan to make their relationship public was to eliminate Zyra. Dorian understood that his wife's death must be a random accident, leaving no trace of crime. After many nights of careful calculation, he decided to use a car accident to carry out his plot. On August 20th, 2018, Dorian secretly tampered with Zafir's car brake system. He chose the moment when Zafir was about to drive from home to work, a route she took every day, ensuring that no one would suspect anything unusual. Dorian made sure that the brake tampering was subtle enough to avoid immediate detection, but would lead to a dangerous incident when Zafir drove at high speeds on the road. That morning, Zafir left home as usual, unaware that her car had been tampered with. When she reached a busy intersection near the city center, the car suddenly lost control. The brakes failed, and the car crashed into a large electric pole at the corner at high speed, causing a serious accident. Zafir had no chance of survival and died at the scene in front of horrified onlookers. Her death was reported as a serious traffic accident, and everyone around her, including the Mason family, was saddened and shocked by her sudden passing. No one, including the police, suspected anything other than an unfortunate accident. After receiving the news of his wife's death, Dorian played the role of a grieving husband perfectly to avoid suspicion. Meanwhile, Evadne also expressed her grief, but both felt satisfied knowing that their first plan had been a complete success. They believed that Zafir's death had been perfectly arranged and that no one would be able to trace the crime they had committed. With Zafir's death going as planned, Dorian and Evadne felt more confident about the next step in their plot. After Zafir's death, Dorian and Evadne believed that nothing could stand in the way of their public relationship. However, they knew that Rafferty, Aidan's husband, was the last obstacle that needed to be removed. Not wanting to cause an obvious accident like Zafir's, Dorian and Evadne decided to use a more discreet and undetectable method: slowly poisoning Rafferty. They discussed this plan thoroughly, knowing that Evadne, as the wife, would have an easy time approaching Rafferty and sneaking poison into his food and drink. Their goal was to gradually weaken Rafferty without raising suspicion, making his death appear to be the result of an unusual illness. However, Dorian and Evadne's plan did not escape Rafferty's notice. As a doctor, he began to notice unusual signs in his wife's relationship with his brother. The sudden and unexplained changes in Evadne's attitude, coupled with the recent death of his sister-in-law, Zafir, made Rafferty start to question his suspicions. His concerns were further compounded when he discovered a shocking truth: he was infertile. This news came as a huge shock, especially since Evadne had just given birth to a son whom Rafferty had always thought was his. The discovery devastated him, and with Zafir's death, Rafferty could not help but think that his wife had betrayed him. To confirm his suspicions, Rafferty secretly installed tracking software on Evadne's phone, including software that could read messages and record conversations without leaving a trace. Using another phone, Rafferty silently monitored Evadne's every move without her knowing. The results of this monitoring confirmed all of his suspicions. Through the messages and calls between Dorian and Evadne, he discovered their secret relationship and even a plan to poison him to seize their fortune and be together publicly. The evidence was so clear that Rafferty was both horrified and hurt by the betrayal of the two people he trusted the most. With determination and calmness, Rafferty quietly collected all the evidence of Dorian and Evadne's affair and murder plot. The text messages, phone calls, and even the poison saved by the tracking software painted a clear picture of betrayal and crime that he could not have imagined. Every step of Dorian and Evadne was carefully recorded by Rafferty, from the secret love words to the gruesome details of the murder plan they discussed. One morning, Rafferty decided to bring all the evidence to the police station without warning anyone. He knew that this was his only chance to stop the plot before it was too late. At the police station, Rafferty presented every detail to the investigators, from how Zafir was murdered to the plan that Evadne and Dorian had discussed to poison him. The police quickly realized the seriousness of the case, and with the clear evidence provided by Rafferty, it did not take long for them to confirm the authenticity of the story. They planned to arrest Dorian and Evadne. One afternoon, while Dorian and Evadne were meeting at a small cafe, the police suddenly burst in, handcuffing both of them to the shock and fear of the couple. Dorian and Evadne did not understand what was happening until they were brought to the police station and faced with all the undeniable evidence. Under pressure from the undeniable evidence, the two finally bowed their heads and confessed. They admitted to every detail of their affair, their plan to kill Zafir in a car accident, and their plot to poison Rafferty to remove the final obstacle. The police officially arrested Dorian and Aidan, charging them with murder and attempted murder. Both were remanded in custody, awaiting trial, where they would face the appropriate punishment for what they had done. The secretive couple was completely shocked when they learned that Rafferty had discovered everything. They never thought that Rafferty, who they thought was weak and easily manipulated, could overthrow their entire plan so spectacularly. The dark plots and secrets they tried to hide were now exposed to the light, leaving them with no way out. Dorian and Aidan's trial began on March 15, 2019, just months after their arrest. The appearance of the two defendants at the Sydney City Court attracted a great deal of media and public attention, as the case involved not only an affair but also a ruthless plot to kill someone for personal gain. During the trial, Dorian faced charges of first-degree murder for masterminding the murder of Zafir through a car accident he had orchestrated and conspiring to kill Rafferty by poisoning. Faced with the overwhelming evidence Rafferty had provided to the police, Dorian was forced to admit his guilt. His lawyer tried to get a reduced sentence by arguing that Dorian was driven by emotion and blinded by love, but the court did not accept these weak defenses. Aidan, although not directly involved in killing Zafir, played an active and direct accomplice role in the plan to poison her husband, Rafferty. In court, she bowed her head and admitted her mistakes, tears streaming down her face as she recalled the months of misguided and sinful behavior that led to this serious consequence. Aidan hoped to receive leniency by expressing remorse, but her actions caused irreparable wounds to her family and the victims. After days of debate and consideration of all the evidence and testimony, the jury reached its final verdict. Dorian was sentenced to life without parole, as his crimes were deemed too serious and unforgivable. Aidan, although partially mitigated by her remorse and not directly causing Zafir's death, was still sentenced to 25 years in prison for her complicity and participation in the murder plan. The verdict brought to a dramatic and painful end to the case, affirming that crime can never escape justice and that the most terrible betrayals sometimes come from those closest to them. The Dorian and Aidan cases have ended with appropriate sentences for both, but the pain and loss they caused still linger in the hearts of their relatives and friends. Rafferty, who suffered a great shock when he was betrayed by his own wife and brother, finally found justice. However, the emotional wounds he suffered will never be erased. The Mason family, once a symbol of success and power, is now left with only broken hearts and painful memories. The case has exposed the true nature of greed and betrayal, reminding us that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are those closest to us. Cruel plans hidden under the guise of love and dark secrets concealed behind sweet words can lead to irreversible consequences. The story of Dorian and Aidan is not only a warning against wrong relationships but also a testament to the fact that justice will always prevail. All crimes, no matter how cleverly covered up, will be exposed. After following this case, what do you think? Do Dorian and Aidan deserve such punishments? More importantly, what would you do if you discovered that the person closest to you was hiding a terrible secret? Share your thoughts in the comments section below.